Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the Chief Executive of Total Politics Group, Mark Wallace, and the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman. Welcome and lovely to see both of you. So let's take a look at the front pages then, shall we? Starting with the Telegraph. It has the headline, £7 billion Afghan migrant cover-up, as the Defence Secretary John Healey apologises for a cross-government data breach and cover-up. The Daily Mail has an exclusive on the story, claiming ministers still aren't telling the whole truth. Front of the Financial Times, the story the government had to secretly relocate Afghans after that data breach. The Times looks at how many people could have been impacted by the security breach. The front of the Metro also goes with our top story, as a judge says the cover-up by the MOD is a threat to democracy. And the Eye also covers the story as 24,000 Afghan nationals, it says, are offered asylum after the blunder. And The Guardian, at the top there, also carrying that story on its front page. Meantime, the Daily Star focuses on the latest crisis facing the BBC as MasterChef presenter John Turode is sacked after he allegedly made an offensive racist comment. The Sun reflects on his sacking with the headline, Chopped. Daily Express looks at the two men sentenced over the felling of the iconic Sycamore Gap tree with the headline, Gap Years. So let's get the thoughts then of Mark and Jenny. Welcome to both of you. And the Afghan story clearly leading a number of newspapers, including Mark, The Guardian. So the stages and layers of this, isn't there? So start with the actual, the data breach itself.
Yes, and this has been described as the most serious and threatening data breach, at least in British history. So what happened was, obviously, we all remember that appalling period in which there was the desperate rush for many people to get out of Afghanistan, particularly people who'd been in the military, people who'd fought alongside, in some cases translated forward and provided other allied services to the British Army, to US forces, when the US decided effectively to abandon Afghanistan, to withdraw unilaterally, and the Taliban took Kabul. As part of that, there was a huge panic, firstly from people trying to contact the British government, seeking to access the potential routes which were being talked about, but in a lot of cases not delivered, or not delivered fully. There were open inboxes. I have worked in the past with somebody who was left inside the Foreign Office manning one of those inboxes in that horrible time. Thousands of people desperately emailing in saying, please rescue, please save me and my family from what's coming. And by early 2022, it seems that someone working for the Ministry of Defence, seemingly in the Royal Marines, was contacting people in Afghanistan in relation to this. And
to verify their claim, presumably?
Well, seeking to communicate with them, hopefully to guide people through that process. And somehow they accidentally sent what seems to be a spreadsheet with tens of thousands of people, of these people's identities, to a source in Afghanistan that was then leaked online, and that was judged to be threatening, understandably, to be threatening their lives. Effectively, a list that the Taliban, if they got it, could use to hunt people down.
So the unnamed official had emailed the data set outside of a secure government system, is the way they described it, while attempting to verify information, believing the data set to only have around 150 rows. Instead, there were 33,000 rows of information which were inadvertently sent. So a massive data breach. So what happens next?
So what happened next was that nobody realised that this had happened until it appeared on Facebook about a year later, and then 3 days after it had been on Facebook, the government contacted Meta and got Meta to take it down. But this is effectively a kill list for the Taliban. If the Taliban were so minded, they could use this list and say, oh, here are people who helped allied forces. And remember, we are people we, as a country, went into Afghanistan for 20 years and then withdrew, and the regime came back. So we already owe these people a great deal, but we didn't even have that duty of care of being able to look after the people who provided, and not just translation services, IT services, cooking, all of those different things. Yeah. So the Taliban, were they so minded, if they had access to this list, could go out and target all of these people. Now, what's interesting in the coverage of this is the numbers are really, really inconsistent. Some people are saying, some figures say it's 18,000 people whose names were revealed in this blunder. Some papers say 24,000.
If you look,
The Eye says 24,000. If you count family members, there's 100,000. The cost of this has also been sort of misreported in many of the papers that they say, or rather there's some sort of quite nimble footwork to make these figures add up, that it costs £7 billion to now relocate these people, because what has happened is that the government has agreed to offer asylum to the people who've been exposed on this list, or at least had done until today, when we've effectively said, yes, we're going to come clean about all of this, but also we're pulling up the drawbridge and nobody else can come. But I think the real cost of this is £850 million. So far, it's projected to ultimately cost £2 billion in the long term.
Yeah, the Eye says that the 3 Afghan schemes together will cost the UK £6 billion. Most other newspapers are picking up on a £7 billion cost. And the £7 billion is indeed, we're told, actually an estimate of the total cost of all government Afghan schemes for the entire period in which they may operate. So not specifically the cost of
the cost of this spreadsheet. This data breach is £850 million. It's the most expensive email ever sent.
So that takes us to why specific journalists fought the super injunction which had stopped this, and why the judge decided it was time to release this information.
Well, I mean, first was the decision to go for a super injunction in the first place.
Okay.
And you know, the government, there are various government ministers from the time and since. We've heard from the Defence Secretary in the House of Commons an emergency statement today, explaining that decision as the fact that this was judged by the intelligence services to be a clear and present danger to those people and to their family members who are on that list, and therefore the injunction was applied for and received in order to suppress it. Excuse me. I think there can be some justification to that in extremis, in a crisis. What's absolutely remarkable is that this is something a variety of journalists have learned about. It's certainly a growing number of newspapers have sought to write about, and broadcasts have sought to cover. But here we are, from 2023 to today. This has had to be dragged through the courts. The government's had to be forced to confess that this happened and to remove the super injunction.
So you have migration, which even the Commons hasn't been able to debate, cost to the taxpayer as well, not least the idea of the data breach itself.
Yes,
so those are the
possible.
elements why it should be in the public domain.
Yes.
But does it now put these people at more risk because it's out there? Is that the problem?
I think, sorry, I'd say very briefly, one thing that Jenny did touch on a moment ago is, if this was the right thing to do in the first place, personally, I believe it was in terms of seeking to extract these people and save them and their families' lives. The fact that the super injunction has now been removed, I don't understand how that is a justification for then ending the scheme.
So why was the scheme ended today?
If the scheme's been ended because people have found out about it, that's not a reason. You know, if it was the right thing to do yesterday when it was secret, it should be the right thing to do tomorrow. Now it's known about.
I think John Healey's take on all of this, the Defence Secretary's take on all of this, is there has been an assessment of the risk in Afghanistan, which has led to the lifting of the super injunction, which has also meant that it's OK to pull up the drawbridge, as I said. But the thing about super injunctions...
So that, to pick up on that, the Rimmer report, which was commissioned by John Healey, concluded that while Afghanistan remains a dangerous country, it is highly unlikely that being on the data set would be grounds for an individual to be targeted, given the time that has passed since the fall of Kabul and the wealth of data to which the Taliban already have access. Because the Daily Telegraph, online at least, is reporting that the Taliban said it already had the kill list, which we're cautioned to not take at face value by the MOD.
Yes,
but anyway.
But apparently there are 2,500 people within Afghanistan who are today finding out that they're on this list. Because of this injunction, they didn't know. They wouldn't have known. The whole thing about super injunctions is not only can it not be reported, but the fact that there is a story that cannot be reported can't be reported. So it means also not just that the press can't scrutinise it, but Parliament can't scrutinise it. And these super injunctions, they are supposed to last a short period of time. The thinking behind this is we have a super injunction, we make sure the people affected are safe, and then we lift it so that it can have the proper scrutiny. And this took place for 2 years, and that is very serious. It is very serious that this can happen, that something this egregious can go unscrutinised for that long.
Firstly, had it not been challenged so robustly, and secondly, had the court case not gone against them, it would still be secret indefinitely. And I think, you know, as a journalist, as a publisher, freedom of expression is fundamentally important to our country. It's one of the reasons that we
But is it when you're trying to protect up to 100,000 people, which is the claims of
I said earlier, I think
members,
in extremis at the start of this crisis, when it seemed like it was circulating on Facebook and elsewhere, I think a good justification. But bear in mind, a British court super injunction does not extend globally. It doesn't really apply to social media platforms elsewhere. It certainly doesn't apply to the Taliban's counterintelligence service. I mean, it doesn't restrict them one bit. So the government needs to explain, not just the last government, but this one, why it would merrily in 10, 20, 50 years have never told us. Because the cost, the national security, the migration policy, the data leak itself, what we do to our allies or don't do for our allies, all of these things, even Parliament, except ministers, wasn't really allowed to find out about
So
this.
the Daily Mail claims an exclusive. Ministers still won't come clean on secret Afghan airlifts. And meantime, the Daily Telegraph, I think, has got Ben Wallace on page 14, who has said he makes no apology about the original injunction, has said the decision to apply for the gagging order was not, as some are childishly trying to claim, a cover-up, and that he believed that if the leak had been reported, it would have put in peril those we needed to help out. He was supportive of helping people out, as I remember.
Yes.
Anyway, so tell us about these two.
Well, I mean, he should have helped people out then. They should have got out the people who were at risk. They had 2 years to do it.
People having to walk to borders at that point, weren't they?
Yes, but we're talking about 2 years here.
Yeah.
This is the whole point. You know, you can make a case for a super injunction in the short term. In the longer term, it looks like suppression. It's also very expensive to have all of these, you know, KCs in court constantly fighting. In the end, you had many journalists from different organisations all together fighting this super injunction.
So somebody was leaking that there'd been a data breach.
Somebody was leaking to many journalists about this. There was this is a huge, protracted court proceedings. You can very much make the case of we need to make people safe, but then take the time to make them safe. And by all accounts, there weren't very many people being taken.
So this is now not over, just quickly. You know, more people presumably still need to get out of the country. So what is the ultimate fallout of all of this then, do you think?
I think we're only starting to see the beginnings of that. Firstly, the question should be asked: are there more of these super injunctions, and how long have they been lasting for? If
they're super injunctions, we won't ever get the answer to that.
We won't ever get the answer to that. Secondly, I think we need to understand exactly. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I did some work with a whistleblower on the failures of the original. Horrendous failures of that original evacuation scheme, and even the costs journalistically and as a publisher of trying to get things like that through official secrets, whistleblowing law, are extremely high. And that's before you get into super injunctions. I think there's a good reason for Parliament to press the government and to ask questions of ministers in previous governments as to not just why this happened, but what their existing policies on any others. Then we need to find out exactly what has and has not happened to the people affected. But also, frankly, if this was done in such a rush and in secret, there are also questions understandably being asked. I think it's the right thing to do for our Afghan allies. But was this done in the full light of day? Was the proper screening done in terms of counter-extremism of people being brought to this country? There's going to be pressure on that too, and understandably so.
Jenny, we haven't really got time for this. One sentence, I'll let you, but otherwise I've got to...
I just want to say, apparently, the person who leaked this still has a job. It still has a job, so there has to be accountability there. I mean, I can't imagine.
But genuine errors are made, aren't they?
Genuine errors are made,
defence,
but it's a biggie,
yeah. OK, fascinating. Thank you both very much indeed. Do stay here. We will move on to what's reported in The Sun, as you can see, reflecting on the sacking of MasterChef presenter John Turode.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Is it a draw? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children? Great to see you. Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block. James Matthews, Sky News.
I want them to be treated equally like everyone else. It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
You're diminished by claims that you're a racist.
The question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
I want to start the programme today with a name, a story that I can't get out of my head. The campaign has now started. This is your chance. Tell people. This is the Politics Hub. It's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
No,
but I'm not. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous.
No one does care about us.
I'm really interested in that. On the Politics Hub, we like to push the boundaries. He's got the majority. The question is, what is he going to do with it? Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview. With me once again, Mark Wallace and Jenny Kim. Welcome back to both of you. Jenny, should we pick up on the Sun? It's on the front of another paper as well, actually. Chopped. John Turode finding out via the media that he is no longer required.
Yes.
When there are questions about BBC management, surely at least you should have phoned someone who's worked for you for 20 years to tell them.
Yes, here are, there's calls for, he's lost his job. Forget about the person who leaked all of the Afghan data. No. Yes. What is going to happen to MasterChef? They have recorded a series that hasn't been broadcast yet. Both presenters now lost their job for behaving badly. It is an extremely important part of the BBC. Lots of people watch it, but it is clearly totally toxic. Today, the BBC's annual report came out. They wanted us all to be talking about growth on the iPlayer and how wonderful the BBC is. But no, again, we are talking about these two people who, by all accounts, did not know how to behave properly at work.
Yeah, I mean, sackings don't get tougher than this, is the other headline I was trying to find. It's the Daily Star, in fact, not being told, finding out via media. He says he does not remember this incident at all.
It was in 2018, apparently.
But or 2019, they say they can't even find it. He said in the statement tonight, can't even find a date when it might have happened or a location. Is he just collateral damage, or was it right, the clean sweep that they both go, do you think?
I mean, it seems like a very serious allegation. They claim it's been... The report is that it's been upheld. I've got to say, what's going to happen to MasterChef? This never happened when Lloyd Grossman was in charge, did it? This wasn't the kind of behaviour you got on Lloyd's watch. I mean, the fact is that, I mean, how the BBC explains that this seems to have gone with both presenters, somehow nobody knew, but enough people knew that it was kind of something you needed to protect people from, et cetera, is... It's inexplicable.
Yeah. Quick word, and I think you wanted to do this on the front page of The Guardian about Rachel Reeves and her Mansion House speech tonight. She knew her audience. Certainly it was impenetrable to a wider audience, I think, wasn't it? But what did you glean from it?
Well, the big headlines were all about relaxing red tape, trying to find this one bound...
Take more risk, by caution.
This one bound, now the options for how the government's going to get its growth seem to be narrowing. There was one little line in there which I think is peculiar. She's cutting the rate of interest that's applied to compensation for people who suffered from mis-selling. And I can't, given the scandals we've had and all sorts of financial malpractice in recent years, I can't understand what the government's motivation would be to do that, because that's consumers losing money out of their pockets.
Yeah, and unravelling some of the clampdown post the 2007-2008 financial crisis, which is penalising, the argument is, the City of London. So, interesting in its own way. In the meantime, let's go to the top of the metro. The felling of the tree at Sycamore Gap was senseless bravado.
These two men were both sentenced to 4 years and 3 months for chopping down the Sycamore Gap tree. I think they're probably going to appeal. They'll probably say that this sentence is too long, that there was hysteria about this. They will say this. I'm not saying this. It was reported as if it was a murder trial. I mean, I was appalled when it happened. I will say, though, that we have this emotional attachment to this particular tree. It's a landmark, it's incredibly important, but so many millions of trees are cut down every single day, and I wish we could care about all trees and not just the beautiful scenic ones, because I love all trees. I'm a tree fan.
That's nice, but I mean, long ago I was an archaeologist. And I worked on Hedgens, or I lived in the pub across the road from the Sycamore. It's not just a tree. It's
the tree from Robin Hood.
But even that, it's growing out of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is vandalism on a genuinely gigantic, serious scale. I'm glad it's been punished appropriately.
Yeah. And it's growing back slightly. It'll take another 150 years to get anything like that picture, mind you, won't it? Mark, Jenny, thank you. See you for more in the 11. Here's the weather.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the next few days look warm and humid with an increasing risk of thunderstorms. Weekend cooler, more widely unsettled. Most places will have a fine start tomorrow. The far southwest will be rather murky and damp. That low cloud will edge further inland through the morning. Some persistent rain developing for Devon, Cornwall and southwest Ireland. Elsewhere, remaining largely dry, some good sunny spells. Southern Scotland and northern England expecting a few showers. Quite warm and muggy overall.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Well, our press preview continues in Sky News at 11. The government admits thousands of Afghans are being relocated to the UK following a huge data breach by the British military.
Turkey is burying its dead. Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone should say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.